Welcome back, true believers and all you spectacular Spidey fans, to a long overdue episode of Spider-Man PS4, or should I say Spider-Man PS5 101. So first off, I hope you're all having a very happy Easter, even with all the crazy circumstances that are currently happening around the world as of right now. And second off, it's just a great feeling overall to finally be back discussing concrete news pertaining to Marvel's Spider-Man and its amazing future, which will inevitably happen with its sequel on the PlayStation 5. So just in case you're someone who's brand new to my 101 series, this is where I fully break down official information and news that has been provided about the overall game of Marvel's Spider-Man and anything that is coming relating to it in the future, and of course that relates to its sequel. And to briefly address the elephant in the room, I am fully aware of the Reddit leaks that do indicate a plethora amount of potential information with Spider-Man 2, with that of the villains, release date, gameplay mechanics, and lots more. But since all that quote-unquote information has only been provided by a random Reddit user with no amounts of validity whatsoever, I wanted to hold off reporting on it, considering how I don't believe all of that in the slightest. Even though there is the possibility that all the information that has been provided on Reddit could be true, we don't know anything for sure until we receive an official statement from PlayStation, Marvel, or Insomniac. But since there have been quite a few updates that have occurred recently from PlayStation directly and the overall console of the PS5, now would be a great time to actually discuss about it and see how it could pertain to the future of Marvel's Spider-Man on its sequel. So to reiterate, all of the information that you are about to hear is 110% confirmed by PlayStation directly, and not anything that is fake or possibly leaked from Reddit with an unknown source. Now obviously, while we haven't received an official announcement just yet pertaining to Marvel's Spider-Man 2, there has been a lot of information revealed about the console that the game will most likely be featured on. But more specifically, we did recently receive a major news announcement from PlayStation directly going over the brand new controller that the PS5 will feature, now labeled the DualSense. Now, even though I personally have some mixed feelings as to the overall design choice and aesthetic that Sony has gone for with the DualSense controller on the PS5, the primary features that the controller will carry do excite me a lot, considering that we all can assume that the sequel for Spider-Man will be an exclusive on the PlayStation 5. Especially now knowing that Insomniac Games is directly owned by Sony and is part of their worldwide studios lineup, that means that they're going to receive even more resources to make the best game possible with their next installment of the Spider-Man series. Not to mention all the massive amounts of critical and financial success that Spider-Man PS4 achieved back when it originally released. So knowing how major of a title Spider-Man's sequel is going to be, it can only be stated that the overall excitement that I have for its potential is clearly that of an understatement. So coming from the PlayStation blog directly, they did a complete deep dive as to all the assets that will be included on the DualSense controller. And to drive the point home a bit further with the term DualSense instead of DualShock is because of how they're really trying to make the player feel every single piece of gameplay that you are experiencing when playing a new title on the PS5. And as for one of the methods that Sony has done in order to achieve this goal is to try and make the controller feel like an extension of the player itself, rather than a separate tool entirely. And to read from the article itself, after thoughtful consideration, we decided to keep much of what gamers love about DualShock 4 intact, while also adding new functionality and refining the design. Based on our discussions with developers, we concluded that the sense of touch within gameplay, much like audio, hasn't been a big focus for many games. We had a great opportunity with PS5 to innovate by offering game creators the ability to explore how they can heighten that feeling of immersion through our new controller. This is why we adopted haptic feedback, which adds a variety of powerful sensations you'll feel when you play, such as the slow grittiness of driving a car through mud. We also incorporated adaptive triggers into the L2 and R2 buttons of DualSense, so you can truly feel the tension of your actions, like when drawing a bow to shoot an arrow. And for all of you big-time webhead fans out there who have either played Spider-Man PS4 or any of the other Spidey games in the past, you'll know that L2 and R2 are pretty much essential buttons when it does come to the web-slinger's multiple games. And by that, I'm obviously referring to the web-swinging and web-zipping mechanics. So seeing that Sony is fully trying to connect the game and the player in more ways than one through the immersive controls, it's going to be an absolutely insane experience when actually swinging through New York City in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Because seeing just how out of this world the traversal system was within the first game, I can only imagine how it's going to feel once the second game actually releases. But to continue with the article itself, in all, we went through several concepts and hundreds of mock-ups over the last few years before we settled on this final design. DualSense has been tested by a wide range of gamers with a variety of hand sizes, in order for us to achieve the comfort level we wanted, with great ergonomics. Our goal with DualSense is to give gamers the feeling of being transported into the game world as soon as they open the box. We want gamers to feel like the controller is an extension of themselves when they're playing, so much so that they forget that it's even in their hands. So given how much effort Sony is trying to input within the overall immersion levels that players feel when playing a game, it's going to be an extremely exciting experience when playing any of the next generation titles on this console. And due to the fact that Sony decided to drop all this information about the DualSense controller out of nowhere, hopefully that means we're actually getting a step closer to the full reveal of the PS5 relatively soon. But as for whether or not we're actually going to see some brand new games be showcased on the PS5 once the console itself is revealed is something we're just gonna have to wait and see on. However, as for the status of the PS5, we actually have already seen footage of Spider-Man run on the next generation platform to test out its loading speed. But to add on to that news in an even more crazier way, it has recently been confirmed that there was actually a low speed version of the PS5 dev kit, meaning that the overall load times that the PS5 will feature will essentially be next to none. And in case you missed this footage from a while ago, it's actually showcasing Marvel's Spider-Man completely running in full force on an early version of the PS5. But in order to provide a bit more context about this footage is actually coming from an article on Push Square's website. And as it has been recently revealed in the article itself, you can always rely on the users of Reddit to dig deep into their favorite topics. While we wait to get our first proper glimpse of PlayStation 5 gameplay, here's a fascinating tidbit. The Marvel's Spider-Man tech demo, which emerged last year demonstrating the speed of Sony's next-gen system, was based upon an early low-speed development kit. And here's what Wired wrote about it. Spidey stands in a small plaza. Mark Cerny presses a button on the controller, initiating a fast-travel interstitial screen. When Spidey reappears in a totally different spot in Manhattan, 15 seconds have elapsed. Then, Cerny does the same thing on a next-gen dev kit connected to a different TV. The dev kit, which is an early low-speed version, is concealed in a big silver tower with no visible componentry. What originally took 15 seconds now takes less than 0.8 seconds to be exact. Obviously, the PS4 Pro is a little faster in the embedded example, but the PS5 loading time is identical, suggesting this is the same demo that Wired saw. It means that the next-gen console's final dev kit may be able to load the Insomniac games developed open world even faster. And just like the article says, that information is simply mind-boggling. Games that run on the PS4 tend to load pretty darn fast as is, but seeing how there could possibly be no load times in the future on the PS5 is just an insane feat that Sony could potentially accomplish. Especially if that means that the overall open world for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 ends up being even bigger than what the first game set. It would mean that players could seamlessly transition from every single mission and district that the city will entail. And I, for one, am already getting beyond hype just thinking about it. And on the bright side of things, even though we are currently going a massive worldwide pandemic, Sony is still completely adamant on releasing the PlayStation 5 worldwide in holiday of this year. And to read a main quote from one of the main heads of PlayStation directly, it states, "DualSense marks a radical departure from our previous controller offerings and captures just how strongly we feel about making a generational leap with the PS5. The new controller, along with the many innovative features in PS5, will be transformative for games, continuing our mission at PlayStation to push the boundaries of play, now and in the future. To the PlayStation community, I truly want to thank you for sharing this exciting journey with us as we head towards PS5's launch in holiday 2020. We look forward to sharing more information about PS5, including the console design, in the coming months." From Jim Ryan, President and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. So directly based on that quote, it truly sounds like PlayStation is trying to fully innovate in as many ways as possible with the next-gen leap that they are going for with the PlayStation 5. And even though we can't possibly tell exactly how the world is going to end up by the time holiday 2020 actually arrives, hopefully that statement is true about the platform releasing in that exact given time. But if the console ends up not releasing during that specific time frame, I'll completely understand their reasoning as well. Although I'm sure the main question on all your minds is pretty much relating to when exactly can we expect the sequel of Marvel's Spider-Man to release inevitably on the PS5. Even though there have been been a couple insiders that have stated previously that they do believe the sequel could release in holiday 2021. I don't think that's going to be the plan anymore. Again, this has to do with the unknown circumstances of the current pandemic and how it's affecting game developers working from home instead of fully developing their games in their studios. While there's still plenty of time until holiday 2021 actually comes around, we don't know how this could potentially affect Insomniac and PlayStation's workspace while they are trying to develop the sequel for the game. But the biggest factor that I see people completely ignoring relating to Marvel Spider-Man 2's release date situation is the fact that it is indeed a Marvel game property. The reason why this is such a big factor is because Marvel Games likes to focus on one major AAA project at a time, and seeing how one of their next big games got delayed from May until September, I would think that they'd like to have that game be out for a while to fully be showcased to the public before they start fully promoting their next big project of the sequel for Marvel Spider-Man. And if you're unaware, the other game that I'm obviously referring to is of course Marvel's Avengers. So like I just said previously, Marvel's Avengers was originally supposed to release on May 15th and has now been delayed until September 4th. But sadly, all the main developers working on that game are currently working from home, so there's no telling exactly whether or not Marvel's Avengers could also be delayed from the September 4th release date as well down the line. We also know that Marvel's Avengers is a live service game that will feature content for years to come, and seeing how this is going to be a game which Square Enix thinks players will continue to play non-stop, there's no telling how long Square, Marvel, and Crystal will fully showcase new updates added to the Avengers project before they start moving on to the next title of Spider-Man 2. But if there's one thing we can confirm as a direct possibility is that we can obviously expect Marvel's Spider-Man 2 to be announced or revealed after the release of Marvel's Avengers. So fingers crossed that the Avengers project actually meets its September release date and it doesn't get any further delayed down the line due to the current pandemic. Because even though I am interested in learning more about Marvel's Avengers, I would much rather prefer an announcement and trailer reveal of Spider-Man's sequel any day of the week. But with all that news discussed, everyone, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think about all these insightful updates to the PS5 and the DualSense controller, as well as the possibility of Spider-Man's sequel having little to no load times? Sony is clearly going all out with the PS5, and I for one just can't wait to see what the console is going to look like once they fully reveal it. And while I'm still crossing my fingers for the holiday 2021 release date for Marvel's Spider-Man 2, we'll just have to wait and see as to exactly how that situation pans out. But until the next major news update, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, stay spectacular, Spidey fans, and peace out.
That look on your face. You can't imagine how satisfying it is.